Welcome back to the Star Trek Critic, and it has finally arrived, the movie you love to hate, Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. Yes! But it may not lose as many points here as you want it to due to the formula. We start with 100 points and take away 1 point for each error and see what's left, which will be the movie everyone loves to hate, Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. Yes! Unfortunately, this movie was made when everything possible could go wrong all at the same time. Most notably, half the movie industry went on strike and were left to dig holes in the desert on a faraway planet. Wait, is that William Shatner riding the horse? They really cut the budget, didn't they? William Shatner had the vision of starting the movie with a horseman on the desert, which looks really good. But when the budget was slashed, he said, "Screw this, I'll just do it myself." The plot comes from the question, where do the cult evangelists get their visions, and how can they control their people so intensely? And unfortunately, Sybok's quest to search for God also got him controlled by an evil entity, and he didn't realize it until it was too late. And he falls into the role of the tragic villain that we end up feeling sorry for. Aww. And like any place where weapons are illegal, illegal weapons are everywhere. The movie starts with a male bonding scene. Woke liberals today watching the movie will have a stroke when they discover that both these characters are straight, and there is nothing gay about this scene. Sybok has mastered the ancient Vulcan craft of releasing your inner demons, but it comes at a price. The released person will follow his emancipator to the ends of the galaxy, which was why it was banned. Did you ever wonder, how did Sybok get to that planet without a starship? Another problem with this movie is that the mainstream audience who knows nothing about Star Trek won't understand that something is off with a Vulcan laughing. This is also the first Trek movie in theaters when the next generation is now in your home. If you're going to leave your house where Star Trek is free to pay for a Star Trek movie, it better be good. That's like light magic replacing the electrical parade. It's a tough act to follow. And this is where the first point is lost. If you are paying to see a movie, the music needs to be different than TV music. And that hideously happy theme music from the first movie has now become next generation music. So why is it here in the theater? It's because of a lack of budget. This screenshot turned out really good. Aww. This is a nice view of El Capitan. To attract a bigger female audience, they show a nice view of Kirk's butt. Of course, Captain Kirk is climbing El Capitan. I wonder how they came up with that. 300 years in the future, Yosemite will still have access roads. And this screenshot also turned out good because of just the legs and the coffee pot looking at the mountain. Good music, but minus 1 point for an obvious stunt double. And in this ultra long, beautiful advertisement for Yosemite, 1 point is lost for El Capitan being visible while he's climbing El Capitan. McCoy talks to himself in the original series also. Here's a nice shot of Spock's rocket boots. They're pretty powerful for as small as they are, aren't they? And minus 1 point for poorly timed jokes throughout the movie. They just aren't natural like in Star Trek IV. Now here's a question. Does DeForest Kelley always wear his pinky ring, or just while he's Dr. McCoy? Shout out to the free faller. You can barely see his harness, but I'll have to take a point since Spock would never be able to catch Kirk in time, or stop like they did, and minus 1 point for hovering sideways. On Nimbus 3, you have to ride horses because the Truckers Union is on strike. Nimbus 3 may be a planet nobody wants, but they got a hopping club. And what are they doing over here? Poor Caitlin Dar. Some Romulan goody two-shoes political ass-kisser who just realized the Romulan Empire gave her this job to get rid of her. They didn't even send a ship when she was taken hostage. David Warner's like, yep, the Federation hates me too, which is why I'm the first person in Trek history to smoke on screen. And Cord is like, well, I get to drink and they pay me for it, so who cares? Did Caitlin Dar arrive on the same ship as Sybok, or was that several weeks apart? We will never know. Talbot makes a political statement here. Making guns illegal causes a spike in illegal guns, which is why states with the strictest gun laws have the most gun violence. So if you're on a tight movie budget, just make a city in the desert that looks like a military training camp. The truckers are still on strike. Even Sybok couldn't release the Teamsters from their pain to help him with his cause. The guards are like, who the heck would invade this dump? Caitlin and Talbot are thinking, well, we're being invaded. It's a good time to call this salesman and buy a house. Look closely, the sign says Paradise Lost. Sybok's the only one on a horse. Did he free the minds of all these guys or just promise them a free beer and a lap dance by the three-boobed cat lady? Sybok now has the prisoners he's looking for, but I got bad news for Caitlin Dar. The Romulans didn't send a ship for her. She must have really pissed them off. And Sybok is also gambling that this won't go down like in the Ransom of Red Chief when they said, go ahead, keep the little brat, see if we care. The next point is lost for this space station that has all the ships stuck on the inside. If Starfleet is there to protect Earth from attack 300 years in the future, we are screwed. And minus 1 point since this footage is from Star Trek 4. And Scotty's really pissed. How do they let him cuss like this on a PG movie? Minus 1 point for a single set of doors on the turbolift. Elevators just don't work like that. The next point is lost because the Enterprise A of Star Trek 5 doesn't look at all like the Enterprise A bridge of Star Trek 4. You'd think in a budget crunch they would use the same set. The guys in the back are like, we're gonna get in trouble with our feet on the counter, aren't we? So the Enterprise A is a lemon the size of an aircraft carrier in space. Nothing works, and judging by this, including the kitchen. This is something else that's broken since a message from Starfleet would not trigger a red alert on the ship. Is this guy even old enough to be in Starfleet? Minus 1 point here since saying this was Starfleet is way too vague. Also, which neutral zone? Present-day Earth has dozens of neutral zones, so the galaxy will have several as well. Minus 1 more point. This is one of the rare times where the view screen is off.
Signal the closest starship. We're in no condition to mount a rescue.
Scotty's like, they can't be serious. There's no one on the ship.
We don't even have a full crew aboard.
Admit it, they're lost.
Have you tried Hare Krishna?
If they're lost, what about that structure behind them? So minus 1 point. Also, 70 degrees is not metric, so minus 1 point. And minus 1 point because you really don't know where they are, and the audience automatically thinks that they're also in Yosemite with Spock, McCoy, and Kirk, but that's not the case. 3 old guys sitting around a campfire. Did you know this scene actually inspired a famous TV show? Bones accuses Spock of being a Hatfield if he doesn't like his beans. McCoy now thinks he's Lumiere. McCoy says it's whiskey, but Kirk says it's bourbon. He's already trashed, isn't he? Did Kirk really die alone though because he was with Picard? McCoy doesn't know why they're always together. The reason is, it's in the script. Minus 1 point here since all 3 of them have families. McCoy has a daughter, Spock gets a new sibling every TV series, and Kirk has a nephew and a buttload of girlfriends and probable kids. The only girl he didn't get was Gillian Taylor because she likes whales more than him. 300 years in the future, marshmallows will be called marshmelons. This device only produce marshmallows or can it also replicate hot dogs? We will never know. Also, 300 years in the future, it will be legal to have a wood-burning campfire in the middle of a protected national wilderness. This is going to kill the woke liberals and the Green New Deal. I guess we'll never learn the lyrics to Moon over Rigel 7. Aww. Kirk is drunk and calls it row, 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 row your boat. Spock ruined their summer vacation. McCoy gets the best funny line of the movie. Kirk recites the poem, all right, let's call it a night. Kirk changes the lyrics to his favorite Paul Simon song. Spock didn't meditate like Vulcans are supposed to, so he's gonna have nightmares over this one. Now they do a Three Stooges Waltons routine, and you can barely hear this before Kirk goes to sleep, but it shows up very clear in the captioning. The next point is lost since this probe, which I believe is referred to as Pioneer 10, would never make it far enough out into deep space for a Klingon ship to shoot at. Of course, Klingons have the best theme music, don't they? Star Trek V is also the last Trek movie with special effects that were 3D props and not computer generated. And due to budget cuts, this shooting scene looks just a little different. But who knows? This could be more accurate than what high-end special effects gives us. Listen to this closely, we'll get back to it later. He says the same thing twice, so minus 1 point. In a nutshell, the Klingons are getting bored in space and want a good fight. That's how we end up with Star Trek VI. The next point is lost since Commander Uhura is in a shuttle crew to pick them up, since she is acting captain right now. Another point lost since Kirk would never leave his communicator behind, and another point since she would have contacted Spock or McCoy instead, which is probably how she knew where they were. This is a public service reminder to always put out your campfire before you leave. just like in the Brady Bunch when Bobby unbuckled his seatbelt. As you can see, Scotty is smart enough to get the Enterprise out of that space station in case they get attacked by Klingons. It is Spock who is correct on this one. As with the other movies, they are always in shuttle number 5. Look closely, not at the flashing lights that do nothing, but someone's feet under the shuttle, so -1 point. Scotty says the first I, almost 20 minutes into the movie. Kirk hands his jacket to the yeoman and is thinking, weren't you on that planet with Mary? And there will be no romance between Kirk and this yeoman because he's old enough to be her dad. Now my big question is, why is this admiral in the domed city of Logan's Run? Is he predicting some type of disaster? The next point is lost for not having the closest ship on patrol go on the rescue mission, since that is the job description of a ship on patrol near the neutral zone. -1 point for sending the Enterprise, since it doesn't have a working transporter, which is the one thing you need in a hostage situation. Even Jim Kirk doesn't believe this comment. It gives you the impression that Starfleet doesn't take this situation seriously, so they're just going to send the misfits that always get into trouble all the time, but get off scot-free for saving the planet with whales. So instead of sending the closest ship, they're sending the one ship keeping Earth safe. Seriously, if Starfleet is what protects Earth in the future, we are screwed. Sulu says I number 2. Sulu says I number 3 while Kirk lets out a really good fart. And Kirk misses his old chair.
What's the matter, Jim? I miss my old chair.
If you want to get technical, the Klingons didn't send a ship either. Claw is working on his own, and he wants to fight Kirk, not rescue Cord. You know the Enterprise is messed up if their handheld equipment doesn't work either. Strangely, Kirk quotes Commander Kruge. This is the video where you discover the Klingon misfit, the Romulan misfit, and the Starfleet misfit, who were sent to the planet nobody wants to be forgotten about, are now hostages of the Vulcan misfit. And the only ones going to get them are the Starfleet misfits on a broken ship. Then they discover the whole thing was caused by this misfit here. A more accurate title, Star Trek V, What Happens When All the Goofballs Are Let Loose. Spock has seen a ghost. Now we're gonna learn what happened in Spock's deep, dark past.
Past? What past?
We didn't know you had a past.
Kirk thinks Sybok is a left fielder.
Fielder's name. Why?
And because the Next Generation is in its 2nd season, this Enterprise also has to have a 10 forward. Kirk says open hailing frequencies while he lets out a really good fart. They have to get him out the old-fashioned way because Starfleet sent the only ship without a working transporter. And 300 years in the future, computer graphics will also be done the old-fashioned way. The next point is lost for the captain, first officer, and the ship's pilot all going down on the hostile mission together. At least they brought a SWAT team with them. That's a first. Of course, it should only be the SWAT team. Sulu says I number 4. Why are they playing an Atari video game from the 70s when they should be flying the shuttle? The special effects in this movie really just don't cut it, do they? Is this Paradise City or a Burning Man camp? And now, for the first time in Star Trek history, Chekhov is in command of the Enterprise. Yes! Usually they just treat him as the kid on the ship, like Wesley Crusher. Of course, if Kirk and Spock didn't leave the ship like they weren't supposed to, he wouldn't be in charge at all, would he? The next point is lost for Kirk and Spock exiting the shuttle in a hostage situation before the SWAT team, which is their job. No wonder they screwed up the rescue mission. And shout out to Chekhov, he does a pretty good job at distracting Sybok. 300 years in the future, one of the best military tactics will still be the 10,000-year-old trick, let's distract them with naked girls. Do they think she's the second baseman, or that they're going to get to second base? Look closely, there's one horse riding away in the background. It's kind of refreshing to know that in the future, some things just don't change. And -1 point here for dubbing someone else's voice over Nichelle Nichols' voice and not telling her. She is a professional singer after all. It is kind of crappy they'll let her dance naked at 50 years old, but they won't let her sing. Now she quotes Russell Case from Independence Day.
Oh, boys!
You gotta admit, the bad guys really aren't that good, are they? The guard quotes his favorite Who song. Is this the only time in Star Trek history where they attack a nightclub? If all the explosions are going on down on the surface, why does Chekhov jump? This is true. Sybok doesn't want bloodshed. He just wants mind control. And the only commercial on Nimbus 3 is the real estate agent. Here's a hint, they still use money because it says easy financing. Did you ever notice these horses have horns? Is this the only time Spock does a nerve pinch on an animal? This wrestling scene is unnecessary. William Shatner just wanted to wrestle a woman with 3 boobs. But of course the hostages don't want to be rescued, it's all a trap. Did you ever notice corrupt visionaries have great outfits? Oh look, they know each other. Sybok quotes his favorite Who song. Sybok is convinced Spock will switch, but he never does he? And Kirk is pissed, of course. One of these days we'll finally learn just what a Kelicam is. Chekhov is definitely no nonsense when he's in command, isn't he? Now just how many people fit in the shuttlecraft? I say 10 to 12, which means there wouldn't be enough room for all his followers to take over the ship, so -1 point. Sybok accepts the fact that Kirk has to act. It's highly unlikely they have never done this before. It would be common training in case something goes wrong. And something always goes wrong on the Enterprise. Sulu is just saying this to scare them. He just flew a helicopter in the past, a stolen Klingon bird of prey, and he even stole the last Enterprise. Then again, Sulu really did a terrible crash landing. But the point lost here is for passing the Copernicus shuttle twice. Then Claw gives Captain Kirk credit for this maneuver, but really it was Chekhov that did this. The next point is lost for not having a security team meet the shuttle, or just flooding the shuttle bay with knockout gas. Kirk gets to fight the bad guy. Kirk tells Spock to shoot Sybok, but Spock says, "No, I am a pacifist, I won't do that. And I got a really big secret to tell you while you're sitting on the toilet in the brig." Scotty is thinking, how did all of them fit in the shuttlecraft? I guess if I had a security team meet them or gas the shuttle bay, we wouldn't get hijacked. Or if the transporter worked, I could just beam them to the brig. The next point is lost for Spock revealing he has a long-lost brother. Long-lost relatives are a terrible plot device. And of course now he also has a human sister that started the war with the Klingons. And if you want to get even more technical, Lawrence Luckenbill is married to Lucy Arnaz, which means these two are his in-laws, which makes this guy Spock's second half-cousin-in-law. Years ago, you used to see them on Vulcan in a jam session together.
Oh no, I've gone cross-eyed.
I suggest you don't worry about this sort of thing and just enjoy yourself. That goes for you all, too.
Yes.
Yeah, Sybok is Spock's brother. This is the first time in Trek history we see Kirk sitting on a toilet, which solves the age-old secret of where is the bathroom on the Enterprise? Well, it's in the brig. But you can't use it while the ship is in space dock. And there goes Chekhov. Aww. Now at Warp 7, there's no way they can get there in less than 7 hours. I'll get back to that later. The next point is lost for using the hallways from the Enterprise D. Putting the outline in the turbolift is all they did. Sybok says he has found the mythical planet Sha Ka Ree, where God lives. And right now the crew of the brig is thinking,
We picked up a weirdo.
Kirk and McCoy tell Spock, "Didn't you tell your brother we already found Eden? And look what happened to Chekhov when we got there." Here is the biggest technical mistake of the movie. The center of the galaxy is too far away. It will take 30 years at top warp speed to get there, not 7 hours. If the Great Barrier was something like the Badlands, the Expanse, or the Briar Patch, no one would be able to say anything. But instead, they decided to go to the center of the galaxy, so -1 point. They really didn't stand back much, did they? The next point is lost since these pipes would go overhead, not across the walkway where you need to push some kind of cart. That's just poor design for forced comedy. And -1 point because Scotty would not hit his head on that beam unless it was in the script to do that. Another point lost for using the Enterprise D hallways. Kirk and McCoy start going up the ladder and Spock says, "Screw that, I'm out of here." -1 point for Spock coming from above without passing them, and -1 point for a visible support holding him up from behind. This is what hurts the movie the most. It runs more like a day in the life of the USS Enterprise, which you can now see once a week at home on TV. This might be the last Star Trek movie Kirk and crew will make forever, so it really needs to go out with a bang. But it didn't. -1 point for passing deck 52 twice, and -1 point for the decks being numbered backwards. The bridge is deck 1, not 78. And -1 point for having a 78 deck vertical shaft on the Enterprise. Whoever designed this obviously hasn't seen a model of the world's most famous TV spaceship. And is this really the only secure transmitter on the ship? All three of them would have personal hotlines back to Starfleet in their quarters, which would be easier to get to, so -1 point. Claw says, "Let's go to the Great Barrier too." Vixis says, "No, let's stay here and go shopping instead." But Claw says, "No, Klingon men have terrible OCD.
We have to go chase Kirk even if it gets us all killed. Are Uhura and Scotty doing a love scene? Sybok believes his goal is to face the ultimate fear and break that barrier. Sybok's human history is a little incorrect here, since humans knew the Earth was round before Columbus sailed. Or did he just mention Columbus so the woke liberals watching would have their personally obligated emotional breakdown? Of course, Heaven and Eden are two specifically different places. So why did the Andorians name their version of Heaven unpronounceable? Now Sybok sounds like a creepy old man. Then when he starts to explain what he does for a living, Dr. McCoy falls right into the trap. McCoy relives putting his father out of his misery right before a cure is found. I'm going to side with McCoy. My question is, why can Spock and Kirk see this? Is it normal for people in the area to see what's going on in their minds? Now here is where Sybok's flaws start to creep out, since Spock has long ago come to terms of his mixed heritage, so Sybok's knowledge might not be perfect after all. Kirk uses this time to make a meaningful speech, which sounds good, but in reality, they didn't have the budget to relive how he never really got to beat the tar out of Finnegan. While all this is going on, the biggest underappreciated special effect in the movie is going on right in front of everyone's eyes. The Great Barrier in the distance is getting bigger and bigger. Sybok thought he won them over, but it didn't work. The three amigos are gonna stick together. Sybok admits he has been given a vision by God, which is why he's the only Vulcan who can smile. Sulu says, "I number 5," and you know what that means.
Ay, 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 ay.
This is the only movie where the Enterprise flies into an oil painting. Sybok's belief was right. There is a planet inside the barrier. But what is the name of it? Someone says it's called Possible. Spock calls it Fascinating. Cord calls it QE2. Caitlin calls it Vorta Vor. Talbot calls it Eden. And Shran calls it Unpronounceable. A terribly cheesy scene going on in the lounge. Chekhov says there's a lot of power coming from the planet, and then he says he's finally seen a naked girl. Sybok also knows Kirk is pretty darn curious to find out what's down there. After all, he is an explorer, and he has to report back to Starfleet about what they found. And there might be girls. They're all like, pick me, pick me, pick me. But Kirk decides the captain and first officer have to go to the surface together, so -1 point. They're like, what do you mean we gotta stay here? That's crap. -1 more point for not bringing a research/security team to keep them safe. Look closely, did Sybok trim his beard and get a haircut before they left? Spock says he's not in control anymore, but why did the entity park them so far away? And why the cheesy special effects? Sybok won't let Kirk take the gun, and he's like, oh good, another pacifist that's going to get us all killed. Why did they leave the camera there by the shuttle and not take it with them? Just how far away did he land that shuttle? And -1 point here. Scotty may be loyal in getting that transporter fixed, but that's a transporter from the Enterprise D, not the Enterprise A. Sybok says this is just how he pictured it, but Spock is thinking, then this god must be quite the minimalist, enjoying the simple environment of large rocks in the desert. It doesn't look much different than Nimbus 3. And why did we have to walk so far? And why does Sybok get the cool boots? Sybok's not really sure how to knock on the door, is he? Well, this screenshot turned out pretty good. The next point is lost because the rocks coming out of the ground just don't look right. But the creature does have a lot of power and puts on a pretty good show for his visitors. But he's only a flim-flam man like her. Poor Sybok truly believes he's found what everybody has been looking for thousands of years. Then Kirk asks the all-important, what does God need with a starship question, since he has never seen ancient aliens. And then this god turns into quite the asshole. Spock is thinking, that looked like fun, I want to go for a ride now. Poor Sybok realized he just got trolled. And now he's a victim of identity theft as well. Now here's an important question. Does this quick Vulcan high five transfer his Katra to Spock? We never find out. This is one of the few times you really feel sorry for the bad guy. Sybok has been searching for the same thing everyone else has been doing for thousands of years, and when he thought he found it, realized he'd been deceived the whole time. All his work was a waste, and he sacrifices himself. This creature is pretty powerful because the photon torpedo and Sybok distracting him still doesn't kill it. -1 point here, the shuttle is much closer than it was before. He's been doing all that work but still can only beam 2 up. That sucks. Of course, that's a plot device to leave Kirk behind, so -1 point. Spock now thinks he's Captain Claw. Spock's like, do we really have to put up with this shit right now? So Spock tells him, Captain Kirk is down on the surface. Why don't you go down there? I dare you. I double dog dare you. Spock gets help from a foolish old man. Meanwhile, down on the surface, Kirk is getting his ass whooped. And he's like, how did this Klingon ship get here? Captain Claw apologizes and promises to be a very good translator for Kirk in the next movie. Kirk and Spock have a straight male bonding moment on screen. Are those even allowed in Hollywood anymore? Ironically, even though this movie didn't do very well, this scene of the two ships traveling back together sets them up for the next movie. Scotty has found a new drinking buddy. Caitlin Dar has decided to hook up with Talbot and go back to Earth because the Romulans never sent a ship to save her. Sulu and Chekhov want to get their asses whooped together. Are they serving Romulan ale? Wouldn't that be offensive to Klingons? Sybok's old followers now serve drinks. And the Klingon salute looks a lot like a watered-down version of the old Nazi salute. And why are they still orbiting this planet? The next point is lost for skipping a line that was in the comic book. They speculate that the Great Barrier is to keep that thing in and not keep them out, which would mean there is something else out there. But they're not talking about this guy, and the three decide they're all one big happy family. Just what the heck are they doing at that campsite? How can they say that on a PG movie? And the movie ends with the three of them singing Row Your Boat because life is just a dream. So who were the inhabitants of Nimbus 3? Yeoman was played by Melanie Shatner, William Shatner's daughter, and has 20 screen credits. Bill Quinn, the father-in-law of Bob Newhart, played McCoy's father. After 235 screen credits, including My Favorite Martian, Wild Wild West, and Archie Plecker's Place, this was his last performance. George Murdoch played the Entity, has 200 screen credits, including Battlestar Galactica, The X-Files, and we will see him again in The Next Generation. Harve Bennett was the producer of Star Trek 2, 3, 4, 5, and Miss America. Rex Holman was Morgan Earp in the original Star Trek and has 100 screen credits, including westerns, but is also on Land of the Giants, Land of the Lost, and the Witch Mountain movies. Spice Williams Crosby played Vixis, has 100 stunt credits to her name, 80 acting credits, including Deep Space Nine and the stunt double for 7 of 9. She is also a very important nutrition expert. Todd Bryant was Captain Claw, also a stuntman with 130 credits, and we'll see him again in Star Trek VI. Cynthia Gao played Caitlin Dar and has pursued a journalistic career until the Romulan ship comes to rescue her. Charles Cooper played Cord. He has 100 screen credits, and we'll see him again as Kempek in The Next Generation. David Warner recently left us. He has a whopping 225 screen credits, including Tron, Titanic, and we'll see him again in Star Trek VI and The Next Generation. And Lawrence Luckinbill played Sybok. He has 50 screen credits and is famous for his one-man performance of Lyndon B. Johnson. Star Trek V, the movie you love to hate, gets the highest score yet of a whopping 52%. Now that they searched for God and didn't find him, they're going to sit around the campfire and sing. Thanks for viewing. Be sure to check out my other videos and playlists. Leave comments below and click that like button, the share button, and that subscribe button. And I'll see you again for Star Trek VI.